Hello there. Today I'm going to be showing off three contraptions that are all proof of concept. One of them is for 1.12 and two of them are for 1.16, but I guess they'd probably all work in the other versions if you did a bit of a redesign. Um, Pretty much these are all proof of concepts for TNT compressors. They're not really implemented anywhere. They're just some arrays I've built up. I definitely would not suggest these designs if you're going to make a Pearl cannon or some other sort of TNT cannon or something cool like that. There's a lot better stuff, and I'll talk a bit more about that at the end of the video. Um, this is more of an update to the other two videos that I made earlier, I think last year, last fall, about TNT compression. And this is meant to show what we've done with this technology, and there's some new technology that's a lot better, but we'll get to that in another video. One other important thing to mention is that these designs, including the ones around me and the other stuff I'm going to show, it was designed about 50-50 by me and Luna, so I did not make all these. She's just not in the video. And this is going to be the first of three videos, so there's going to be one on sort of updating our old stuff, one on a completely new duper system, and the last one will be a bit of a surprise. But it'll be fun, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it when those come out. Okay, so these two compressors right here are made for 1.12. We're on the Hecate CMP right now. And basically, this is what happened after I published the second video about TNT compressors. So basically what we did is we took that exact sort of layout and we ported it to 1.12, so we had to change the dupers a bit. We had to update some of the wiring, and this is a really clean wiring of it, unlike that second video. And yeah, these work. So I can demonstrate that here. So this one compresses relatively quickly, and this one is just a scaled up version of this first one, and I'm going to talk about why I have this one here in a second. So these were designed again by me and Luna, and XCOM helped us out with sort of generating the initial concept. We weren't really familiar with this version's TNT dupers, and he was interested in the project, so we talked a bit, and he helped us do some of this stuff in 1.12, and this is actually how we got to Hecate, which is pretty cool. So the thing with this design, as you probably saw in the last video, it uses this slider to compress them in this direction, and it uses these bottom sliders, or these bottom rows, to compress them in this direction. So this works really well on the small scale right here, but the problem comes when you get to this larger scale, because the dupers are tiled in this direction, and our optimization is that it starts compressing it sooner, because this happens one block with 1 block of air between the TNT and the first slime compressing it. But the issue is this isn't the long way to compress it. This is going to take the same amount of time no matter where it is, however far back it is on the array. The issue is this bottom one, which is actually 1 block lower than the best designs like GPWs and the stuff in the 420 FTL, which actually might be GPWs. I think it's GPWs. So I can prove that this one here too also works, but you can see that it takes a lot longer to compress because the TNT has to go all the way from over here to over here. So yeah, essentially both of these designs work for 1.12, although I wouldn't recommend them because they're just slightly less efficient than the other more polished designs that are already out there, and a lot more easy to encode. One other thing I forgot to mention is that I didn't actually record a nice fancy shot of the 1.12 version, because what we're looking at right here, the rewired 1.16 version is pretty much the exact same thing. This wiring over here on this side is a little less pretty, but it's just fine. So this is basically the same thing, especially the same thing is the version 2, but this one has been rewired to be prettier and look better. And yeah, altogether, it's a lot better than that version 2, but still wouldn't recommend it for the exact same reasons as I wouldn't recommend the 1.12 version. So we can check this one out when it fires. Yay, TNT. Now, this version is a very interesting version, and this is one of the best possible ways that you can use this kind of style of compression, in my opinion. But even this has a few major drawbacks. So this system right here is very similar to Fallen Breath's system for 1.13 plus, which is fantastic. You should definitely go check it out. Basically, this is also proof of concept, so there's some stuff that's a bit very rough around the edges. But pretty much what we have here, and the thing that makes this so interesting, is this slime layout. So at first it might look exactly like Fallen Breath system, which is pretty cool in itself, with these layers here to compress it into the middle, and these sweepers here. But the interesting thing is these sweepers are actually a whole block higher than on Fallen Breath's module, which means that in theory we can start to compress this TNT slightly earlier, which means it's compressed faster, which means we can maybe try and tack on another row of TNT on the end, and it'll still be able to make it to the center. And that's the theory, at least. In fact, that doesn't work for a few key reasons, and I can explain why in a second. So the first question, though, is why can the slime be here? So what we've done is these fence gates here that align the TNT into these 4 slots actually get shifted. So this TNT gets duped while these are unmoved, and then these start to move, and these start to move at the same time so that they never actually stick to each other, because one is always in block 36 while the other is standing still. So that way they never stick to each other. Push limit isn't an issue even though they're right next to each other. And that's basically what allows us to get this part 1 higher. Now as far as timing, these sliders right here, or not sliders, these rows of these sweepers, I guess, are actually timed at 15 game ticks, which is 1 game tick faster than Fallen Breath's design. The sad thing is that this doesn't really make a difference. After some testing that was determined, so while it's technically faster, it's not really practical because it's way more complicated and doesn't really make a difference overall. The other issue with this is this whole part down here, because there's all these moving parts. It actually has to fire this line quite a few times to get it reset and everything, and so it in fact takes so long to reset that, as we'll see in a second when we fire it, it will pretty much not be able to reset, or it's barely able to reset in time for the second packet to reach down here and then get shot over, which is the ultimate goal. Up here, you can see that part with the second packet getting sent. And yeah, I'll show that in just a second. A few things I did want to mention here is this is a proof of concept. First of all, here you'll see this rail line. This is of course not possible in normal survival. This is because of carpet rules. Just change the rail power limit for the proof of concept because it's just that, a proof of concept, so there's no particular reason that we need to make it so that this there's like an instant line here when we could just use a carpet rule because it's only for creative anyway. The other thing is we used these comparator lines here. In theory, you can encode with this. You can even, in theory, make it instant. Is it practical? Probably not. If this were implemented into Canon or something, is this how we do it? Probably not. But, you know, this is just proving that you can, in fact, use these pistons to extend these pistons, which stops it from moving in the first place and stops the TNT from getting duped, which is how these modules encode. Okay, so here I'm about to illustrate the issue we've had. So if you watch carefully, we have one packet, two packets, and then this second packet gets shot over and almost instantly explodes. So the issue with that, of course, there is not a lot of time to do anything with that because, you know, it explodes almost instantly. And the further you travel, although with like 200 and I think this is 260 or 280, somewhere in that range, TNT, it's probably not gonna matter that much, but you know, if you make it really long, it'll need a lot more time to get there, a few game ticks at least. So yeah, that's another issue that could happen with this design. All those things in mind, this design is, yeah, pretty much not really worth it, because Fallen Breath's design basically does the same thing, is already set up for encoding, and has a very similar layout, and is probably faster, in fact, because you don't have to shift these fence gates and reset them. You can just fire it whenever the TNT can fire again, and whenever these sweepers can fire again, so it's overall a bit faster, even though this can technically start compressing it a little bit earlier. Um, it's not really worth it. So all in all, I really wouldn't suggest using anything I've shown off today, besides the concepts, which is probably the main reason why I'm not going to include a world download or a schematic or anything. It's just there's a lot better designs out there, and if you like the concept, you can go design something of your own with a similar concept. And if you really want to see it, just message me on Discord and let me know. You can find me in the Hecate Discord server or the Juno Discord server or something like that. Just message me and we can maybe work something out. For 12, as I said, just use GPWs. It's great. For 16, use Fallen Breaths. Also use Intricates. Intricates is really cool. Super smart layout down at the bottom, which I really like, and we're working together on some stuff in the future that hopefully should be the best sort of method to dupe and compress TNT, and that's what's coming next. It's going to be super cool, and hopefully that video should be out in maybe a week or two or a month. It really depends on how these last like few finishing touches to the project end up, because I think we want to finish the whole thing before we even publish just the dupers. One last note, as far as the older videos, I really wouldn't suggest anything in them at all. I also, in one of them, mentioned possibly having a design for an 11 TNT duper for 1.16 instead of a 10 TNT duper, and I was being dumb and that didn't work. So I just wanted to note that because I got a few people who mentioned that. So thanks once again to XCOM and Luna, who both worked a lot on these projects. And yeah, stay tuned for what's to come because it's pretty cool.